Bases dropped on another edition of Soccer Down here. It's a Thursday. It's a Thursday thoughts kind of show, so we'll be taking your Thursday thoughts on the U.S. men's national team playing Wales this afternoon. First time in a long time that we see them on the field, and first time we're going to see a lot of players on the field repping the United States. We'll get into all of that. Hour number 2, Bart Keeler joins us to talk about the USMNT. We got South American World Cup qualifiers starting today. We've got the European Championships playoffs today, some interesting matchups there. Some news on Cristiano Ronaldo, or at least some rumors. The juice box lines have shifted in where Cristiano Ronaldo could end up next year. And I'm talking January, not talking next fall. So we'll see what happens with that. All the other craziness that you guys are used to around here. You want to join in, tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Email us, soccerdownhere@gmail.com, or join us on the Twitch pitch, twitch.tv/soccerdownhere.
So what's the closest drink of choice for you this morning?
It's a Red Bull this morning. I got to switch over to the mate this afternoon. I was a little lazy this morning.
Okay, because I have gone straight to the Mountain Dew this morning. There was no diet cheerwine left over for me to partake in to finish up this morning before heading straight into the Mountain Dew. So we are right to the Mountain Dew this morning, the 1 cup a day until Friday.
And then it's 2?
Yeah, probably. Or at least something in my hand, just to kind of give the appearance that I can drink something else in addition to the one. It's just something to occupy my space.
That's even weirder.
No, it's just something to have in my hand. It's like having a pen to write with. You have a bottle of Mountain Dew there to just kind of sit there and remind you that, okay, this is here if you need it. But sometimes I will say this. I will stipulate to this. The more Mountain Dew that I drink in the day, the weirder the taste gets. And there actually is a point of the day where I stop because it's just too sugary and it just gets to that point. And I guess that's what happens when you have to resort to drinking diet drinks most of the day.
I thought when he got some sleep that maybe this version of John would reboot. It has not. So I apologize in advance again. Okay. Let's get into, we'll save U.S. and Wales for hour number 2 once we get Bart on, because I want to talk to him about some of the players he's looking forward to seeing today. Very curious to see what the lineup will be. I want to see how many of these new faces get into the lineup straight out of the gates. So just so you kind of know what is on the agenda from a soccer perspective today. Let's see. You can watch Ghana and Sudan at 11 o'clock on beIN Sports, on Fanatis as well. You can watch the Ivory Coast and Madagascar. I don't think I've ever seen Madagascar's national team play. I'm kind of intrigued by that one. That is also on the Fanatis. I believe that is on beIN Espanol. 12 o'clock is where you start to get the European matches. And the ones that matter today. Look, I don't really get too excited about friendlies outside of the U.S. playing, and we haven't seen the U.S. in so long, so I'm kind of excited about this friendly. But the games that matter, there are 4 in Europe. These are qualification matches to get into, these are playoff matches, to get into the Euro 2020 in parentheses 21, that'll happen next summer. The biggest one is, what is the biggest one? Is it Serbia and Scotland? Are we going to say that's the biggest one? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Jarrett would be upset if we didn't. Serbia hosts Scotland. Northern Ireland hosts Slovakia. Hungary hosts Iceland. And Georgia hosts North Macedonia. Georgia or North Macedonia will be in the Euros.
If you're really a degenerate, Georgia is a plus 167. North Macedonia is a plus 224, and your draw is a plus 180.
You never bet against Georgia when they're at home. No, I meant you
Paul.
do. You do.
Paul, them North Macedonians ain't got no passing game.
They might not, actually. That could potentially be valid. North Macedonia has played as a national team for, I believe, just this cycle. It's going to be wild to see either one of them in the Euros. The game that I think a lot of people are looking at is Serbia and Scotland, and Serbia will be missing one of their players, the 29-year-old Crystal Palace captain Luka Miljovic. 38 capped. He tested positive on Monday after arriving at the national team's training center. Follow-up test was also positive. He will stay in Serbia in accordance with their laws related to COVID-19, so he's not even going to go back to London straight away. Crystal Palace is probably freaking out a little bit because he tested positive when he arrived. This has happened with Hoffenheim players, where you've had a number of players from Hoffenheim go out on national team duty and test positive. They've got an issue at home as well. I believe they've got 6 positives right now at Hoffenheim, and some national teams have sent Hoffenheim players away and said, no, you can go back. 6 positive at Hoffenheim. Kevin Vogt was another one on Wednesday. Whole team placed in isolation. 5 other players and 2 staff members have tested positive in the last week. 2 of those were found to be positive after they joined up with their national teams. I mean, I don't know. At this point, I honestly don't know what you do, because you would assume that the players at Hoffenheim were testing at Hoffenheim, and then they tested positive when they left. 2 of them, 4 more tested positive at Hoffenheim later. So, I don't know, maybe it's just timing. Crystal Palace, they're testing at Crystal Palace, and then he tests positive when he goes on international duty. What does that mean for Crystal Palace? Now, they should be probably going into some form of follow-up testing and maybe isolation and maybe all this. And what does that do for the schedule in England? I mean, this is just where it is, and it's not getting a whole lot better right now either. So it's a little scary. The Euro playoff games, time-wise, Georgia, North Macedonia is at noon. Mm-hmm. What else we got in terms of kickoffs? Everybody else is 2:45? Yep. Okay. Georgia, North Macedonia is on ESPN2. That is insane that's on ESPN2. Serbia, Scotland's on ESPN2. Northern Ireland, Slovakia, Hungary, Iceland are on ESPN3 and on the ESPN app, and everywhere else you would watch ESPN3, which is different than ESPN Plus, by the way. I think there's some confusion there. ESPN3, you have to have an ESPN subscription somewhere to be able to access it. Those games kick off the same time as Wales and the United States. That is at 2:45. It's on FS1 in English. It's on 2DN in Spanish. I believe it's on Unimas as well. And then the South American qualifiers, Bolivia and Ecuador, is game number 1. That is at 3 o'clock. And game number 2 today is Argentina and Paraguay at 7 o'clock. You can watch both of those on Fanatis through the pay-per-view system that whoever bought the rights to these games has put them behind a pay-per-view wall. Fanatis and Fight TV, I think, are really the only 2 places you can get them digitally. I think some cable systems are getting them. They are $29.95 each, or you can get a package for your national team. So if you want to watch both Argentina games, it's $49.95. So you save a little bit that way. And Fanatis has been pretty clear in this. A lot of people were yelling at Fanatis about it. They're like, we're just a place you can watch it. Like, we have nothing to do with the rights. We just made it available for you to watch. We can't cut the price because that money goes straight to them. We don't make anything on it. We're just trying to give you an outlet to watch it. It's frustrating, but it is what it is. Hopefully somebody buys those rights and puts them out a little bit different.
Did you get the email from Fanatis explaining the situation coming into this go-round?
That was why I said that.
Yeah, and I mean, for the record, Ecuador at 3 o'clock is a -115. Bolivia is a +330, and your draw is a +250.
+330 at home, but Bolivia has been pretty bad. Nah, I wouldn't even throw anything skunky on that one.
Then Argentina at 7 o'clock is a -263. Paraguay a +770.
Wow.
And your draw is a +385.
Wow. That feels really high for Paraguay, but I'm still not touching it. Argentina should win in Buenos Aires. Should being the key point of this. Everything's so weird right now. Who knows? Lionel Messi is fine, according to Lionel Scaloni, the manager in Argentina. He should be available. There was some concern about his ankle because he didn't start for Barcelona in their last match. Everything should be all right here for Argentina. They should be pretty close to full strength. So I would think Argentina and Ecuador are your winners today. I don't know if I like any of those odds well enough to put any juice boxes on anything.
No. And your Africa Cup of Nations numbers, the home sides in the 9 matches that remain today at 11 a.m. and 2 this afternoon, all the home sides are favorites. They are not anticipating any kind of visitor impact, and Uganda and South Sudan are goalless in the 52nd.
Ricky Ricardo was asking for the TV coverage of the United Arab Emirates and Tajikistan. That game has just kicked off. It is not available anywhere that I see that would have any kind of legal means of broadcasting that game. So
Yes.
Good luck, and make sure your pop-up blockers and all of your virus protection is on your computer if you go try to find that one. Have fun with that. Yeah. There is a game on right now, and Nick Alifi might be watching it. Italy's U21s and Iceland's U21s are on Fubo TV and Fanatis. I think that's actually only on the Italian package on Fanatis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it's on Rai Italia. So if you have the Italian package on Fanatis, you can watch that one, and Italy is leading 1-0 at their U21 level over Iceland.
Yep. UAE and Tajikistan are goalless in the 7th.
Okay, just in case you really needed to.
Just in case, Ricky,
there.
you need to know, and you haven't gotten there yet. Goalless in the 2nd.
Totally. That's what we know so far. So that's all your viewing options through legal means. You've also got some other games on. Uruguay League is going on. River Plate and Nacional is at 12:45. That's on Goal TV and Fanatis. Algeria and Zimbabwe is on at 2 o'clock on beIN Sports via Fanatis. I think that's it. You got Oklahoma and Oklahoma State playing at 8 o'clock. I believe that is on the women's side. And then you have the Colombian League tonight, Cucuta and America de Cali at 8 o'clock on Fanatis. I think that's all. It's a lot of games.
Basically, you're telling me to camp out on Fanatis after 2:45 this afternoon. In and around 2:45, camp out on Fanatis.
You're not going to watch the U.S. and Wales?
That's what I'm saying, around 2:45. At 2:45, then I watch USA and Wales, but around that time frame, watch Fanatis to get everything else.
There you go. We have a heated discussion on the Twitch pitch about the differences between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, and I ain't touching it. I ain't getting into that. When y'all fight it out, I'm not saying anything about anything. Man.
But the one thing that I did find out is that North Macedonia was actually Macedonia until February 2019.
So there is no Macedonia any
Apparently
longer?
Not.
Why did they just support North Macedonia and not the rest of Macedonia?
I'm getting into that history, so that history lesson will be coming in just a sec when I get to the 21st century.
Okay, that's odd.
Very.
I got nothing. The little bit of news that we teased about Cristiano Ronaldo. So this is going to get weird. Oh, Tesco with a question. Do you know how to follow U.S. men's national team on radio? There won't be anything on regular terrestrial radio. I do believe that SiriusXM FC will have this game. They typically do. They just do the TV audio on radio.
And is it on? It's usually on the Fox Sports radio.
It depends.
Channel.
Sometimes it's on SiriusXM FC. Sometimes it's on the Fox Sports radio channel. It depends. So that could be on SiriusXM, but I'm not 100% sure of that one. So Burn says about Macedonia, North Macedonia. The Greeks wanted that name. It was a huge saga.
It was.
Wow.
Yes.
All right. So keep reading. Keep having fun. Keep discussing Ireland and Macedonia. We'll talk Cristiano Ronaldo for a minute.
Yeah.
The idea has been out there for maybe about a month or so that he would be leaving Juventus here at some point because they're trying to reduce their wage bill. You know, it looks like you bring in Andrea Pirlo, you get younger with some of the players they're bringing in. They're trying to build a new generation. The experiment of bringing in Cristiano to win Champions League hasn't worked. So why pay him an astronomical amount of money when you're trying to go in a different direction? So I think the idea was generally to try to move him in the summer. Well, now that's moved up a little bit. PSG has been one of the landing spots because PSG is linked to any kind of player like this. Manchester United has popped up as a potential landing spot. There is discussion in the English media that Ronaldo's agent, Pedro Mendes, who is very well known as a kingmaker in the football game in Europe, that he's been talking to Manchester United to the point that some of the odds makers in England have slashed the number on the likelihood of Ronaldo joining Manchester United in January.
Wow.
I don't know how all that works. I don't know how all that goes. I am very, very intrigued by this whole thing. You're going to have to pay him a lot of money. I don't know what kind of transfer fee Juventus would be able to get. I don't know if they honestly even really care at this point.
Yeah.
I think just getting him off the books would be the more important thing. I don't buy it yet, but I'm interested to see what happens. And if you get a move in January, that could change a lot of things. He couldn't play in Champions League. That's one thing to understand, is he would be, tied to Juventus in the competition. So if you're going to move him in January, he's only available for the league, which with such a compressed schedule is kind of useful because he's not going to play in those Champions League games for PSG or Manchester United if they get out of the group stage and are still playing. He's just available for your league and your domestic competition. Okay, that might help in some ways, kind of. I don't know. I'm not buying it in January. I think it's far more likely in the summer, but who knows?
You mentioned January, and my radar went instantly up. But you present a good case for, if it was to happen in January, then you'd have him for the domestic competitions, and that would help you out there. And we know about, well, we talked about schedule compression when it comes to Premier League and all this other kind of stuff, and I think it would help there. Can you have, all right, so it's November 12th as we're talking.
Mm-hmm.
Can you figure out a way in 7 weeks to get it figured out to where Cristiano Ronaldo could be a part of something at Manchester United? Yeah. I don't think so.
Why not?
To me, 7 weeks just seems like too quick of a turnaround for me to try to get something done, because you've got agents who want their piece. The player's going to want to have input. For me, Manchester United's books. How are you going to sit there and try to get things rejiggered in your budget? So you're going to have to try to find some money in between sofa cushions from the Glazers' couch in Tampa.
They've got money. I don't know what you're talking about. We've talked about Manchester United's financial position.
They had to restructure their debt.
How many shirts are you going to sell?
Oh, my God.
And last time I checked, you got a player, and Sam Williamson's already brought it up on the Twitch pitch. You got a player that has been a bit of a distraction and problem for you for a number of years, and he played for Juventus before, and Juventus has spoken glowingly of him.
I was going to ask about a trade concept, yeah.
Could see a swap involving Mr. Pogba.
Yeah.
That would make some sense.
Yeah. So that was the other part of this I was going to bring up, was the possibility of sending Pogba over and bringing Cristiano Ronaldo as a part of a swap.
It could happen. I'd be intrigued by it. I think it's more likely in the summer, but things are so weird at the moment. Like it's hard to tell where things are going to go. The financial stuff is real here, and there's only a couple of clubs who could even be in this conversation about bringing somebody like that in, and they're still going to have to find cuts somewhere to offset it. I mean, we've talked about the Barcelona situation for a while. They've got 10 days to sort out what's going to happen with these pay cuts that they have not been able to agree to. It sounds like there's a possibility that the board could unilaterally make pay cuts for people, break contracts essentially. That could get ugly. I'm sure they don't want to do that, but they might not have a choice because they might not be able to pay these contracts out. Now you've got an article from Alex Kirkland and Rodrigo Faez in Spain on ESPN about Real Madrid, who has been handling this pretty well. They have been balancing their books. Their players are going to be asked to take another pay cut, sources have told ESPN. They're putting their finishing touches to the current season's budget. finalize in the next couple of days, present a proposal to the first team squad. Sources have told ESPN the exact percentage of salaries that the players will be asked to give up has not yet been fixed. Once they fix that, they can figure out what that number is, they will sit down with the captains who will represent the squad, Sergio Ramos, Marcelo, Benzema, and Varane. In April, a first pay cut of between 10 to 20% was agreed for players, coaching staff, top execs at Real Madrid, and the club also decided not to spend money on new signings in the transfer window. The squad also agreed to give up bonuses they were owed for winning La Liga, so they've given back a lot. Yeah. Those measures help protect the jobs of club workers and avoided the need for the club to temporarily lay people off. There's a Spanish employment law thing here that's a little bit different than a typical layoff or furlough. So they didn't have to do any of that. Everybody kept their jobs. Sources have told ESPN that the players are sympathetic to the club situation, so they're at least willing to talk, and they're willing to try to find a solution here. I don't know how much more they'll accept in a cut, but at least they'll listen, and at least they'll have this conversation. So, the basics, none of this is a surprise. Real Madrid suffered a decrease in revenue from sponsorship, marketing opportunities, lack of ticket sales. All of those things are real. La Liga sources have told ESPN that Europe's biggest clubs can see a shortfall of between 3 to 4 million euro per home match when all losses are taken into account. The sports minister in Spain suggested on Wednesday that there is a possibility fans will be allowed back into La Liga stadiums before the end of the current season if the circumstances and a potential vaccine allow. So now it has turned from, let's go back in time a little bit. When the restart happened around Europe, the idea was finish this current season, start having fans in the stands for the next season, and maybe by the end of the year, we're back to at least 50% capacity, maybe even more in some cases. Now it has turned rather quickly to we might not have fans in the stands this whole season.
Yeah.
And it's a maybe that you'll allow some fans in the stands. That changes everything in terms of the books. And this is where a Cristiano Ronaldo conversation gets weird, because Juventus wanting to cut salaries, totally understand it. He's a huge salary. You want to get rid of that if you can.
Yep.
There's a few clubs that can afford it or can make it work. They're probably still going to have some corresponding moves. But then they're looking at it, and I would assume if you're Manchester United, let's try to put yourself into that boardroom for a second. You're looking at it, okay, revenue is difficult for us right now because we don't have people in the building. We're losing out on sponsorship revenue because of that. But if we add him to the mix, we're going to sell shirts.
Yeah.
It could help us with sponsorships like, hey, we're not getting, these people in the building. We're not doing the hospitality stuff that we talked about doing. But now we're going to put Ronaldo in the Manchester United shirt with your logo on it or in this advert or whatever. Maybe that helps in some ways. Like there's only him and Messi are the only two that fit that conversation that can have that kind of effect.
Yeah, with the math, you're looking at somewhere between 50 and 70 million euro that you're not getting by having home matches this season, and you have to think creatively about how you're going to try to offset not having that gate revenue and bringing in someone like Cristiano Ronaldo who can sell the shirts and maybe bring in sponsors and all those other things that are the off-the-field things that and outside the stadium stuff. Getting someone like that hopefully can get you closer to that 50 to 70 million that you're losing by not having folks walking in through the turnstiles.
Yeah, it's not easy. All right, let's get into the Twitch pitch a little bit, and we'll get into some Twitter. Matt Wagner said, did I hear you correctly talking to me that on stoppage time yesterday when I said Marcelino Moreno could possibly be bought down to a TAM player next year? Yeah, that's part of the conversation that's out there. When you go back and you check the Argentine media on this, I think they had the transfer fee between $7 and $7.5 million. Then all the reporting was a 5-year deal, which I would assume was 5+ year deal because of the rest of this season. So we're taking some guesses here. We're going on some reporting over there. When you start to do the math and you figure out, okay, what would the cap hit of the transfer fee be? And then you add a salary on top, which we don't know what that is. You're right around that maximum amount that can't be, or that could be bought down with targeted allocation money. You're right around it. Now, remember, over time, that amount goes up. That maximum number gets higher with every year in the CBA. And there's been some speculation, and look, this is all a mystery. I think Paul Tenorio does maybe the best job out there with The Athletic of breaking down some of these rules. And even he doesn't have all the answers because MLS can change stuff on the fly sometimes. It's really close. I think at some point in his contract, he will be bought down. I think it will. The numbers will work to where you can do that. It'd be great if it's next year. It might not be next year, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. I think it will happen. I just don't know if it can happen that quickly. But we'll have to wait and see. That's been part of the conversation around Moreno for a while now. So don't be shocked when it happens. I just don't know if it can happen next year. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
A lot of it depends on how they arrange this stuff, because if you're able to adjust the numbers a little bit and make things work, like, yes, he was signed in the 2020 season. He was only here for a few months at the end of the 2020 season, but if you say that he is part of 6 seasons as opposed to 5.5 seasons, and you start doing math based off 6 instead of 5.5, I don't know if you're allowed to do that. I don't know, because this stuff is all funny money and monopoly money and moving things around to make it fit and whatever. I mean, Christian Pavone was a non-designated player for a year, so come on.
Yeah.
Maybe it can happen. Maybe it can happen immediately. I think it will happen. I just don't know how quickly. So, Matt, that's the very convoluted answer of yes, maybe, kind of, sort of.
Perhaps.
I don't even think it's a perhaps. I think it's a maybe in terms of when.
Yeah.
I think it's an absolute, and yes, it will happen. I just don't know when it happens.
Okay.
That's the thing too. And Jason Nick says, yeah, the club kind of alluded to it. I mean, they can't say straight out yes or no on that, because honestly I don't know if they know, because of the way MLS's roster rules are at times, and how they change every year, it seems. But it definitely sounds like that's something that is in the back of their mind. That is a possibility that they will be working towards to make this happen.
On Twitter, I'm going to go ahead and just get ready for this one. Nathan Pugh, he's got a couple.
Okay.
He says he couldn't listen live last night. And so his thoughts on last night's SDH PM. An irritated diet John is my favorite kind of John. # Thursday thoughts. What can I say? Yeah, I had to reboot my computer a couple times last night. And then with a Peter Griffin gif of him grabbing his knee, Nathan says also the door for Spurs, Chelsea, or Leicester to win the league has been blown wide open.
Yeah, Gomez will be out for most of the season, according to Liverpool. Interesting couple of things that have popped up in the media about Liverpool's defensive situations. So, Daryl Janmont, who played for Watford, left them in October following their relegation from the Premier League. He is a free agent. He is available. He reportedly has been offered to Liverpool, I'm assuming by his agent, as short-term defensive cover. 31 years old, normally plays as a right back, can play centrally. He's a Dutch international. So that's not a bad solution to grab somebody who is just out there floating around waiting for a team. The other one that's come up, and he hasn't been linked to Liverpool just yet, although I think it's starting to pop up because of the need, is David Alaba. So Alaba is going to leave Bayern. Public falling out with the team over a new contract. They withdrew their offer of a new contract. There's talk that maybe he goes in January, although Bayern have said he's not going to go anywhere in January. He's out of contract in the summer. So Bayern saying he's going to play his contract out, and they're going to let him walk. But maybe they say, we'll take a few $1 million to let him go in January. He reportedly has wanted to go to Real Madrid or Barcelona. Well, we've just talked about it. Barcelona is trying not to go bankrupt, and Real Madrid is trying to slash their salaries. He would be a big salary. Liverpool can afford that. Liverpool, I would think, would be lined up January 1st when the window opens with a bag of cash. Correct. And whatever David Alaba wants to come there and to try to get it done with Bayern, because that would make a lot of sense. But you have to get to that point.
Yeah.
Maybe, and the article at Team Talk about John Mott was kind of like he wants a deal through the end of the year, which any player would. He might be willing to accept a short-term contract to show and prove, essentially. So a short-term contract up to the January window. They've got some solutions. None of them are ideal if you're Liverpool because you've had so many people get hurt. But they've got some things that they can do. I want to see what they do to solve this in the short term because maybe they could have kept it together with, paper clips and duct tape before Joe Gomez got hurt. I think you've got to go get another body. You've got to get somebody else in there.
And I thought that, as you were mentioning, folks, I thought it might end up being a combination where you bring in Jan Mott as your immediate solution to add to your duct tape and your chewing gum and everything else that you're trying to do to keep it together. Then if you can bring in Alaba in January, Jan Mott is there for your cover, if that makes any sense. He's that bridge to get you to January. If they agree on something with Alaba comes in. Jan Mott's there to assist because of, once again, everything we talked about with Liverpool and their scheduling. You're going to need the help anyway, and it gives Jan Mott a chance to prove his worth with the deal through the end of the year at the same time.
Yeah, and one more on England while we're there, because there's been some updates on this. Greg Clark, numpty, plonker, every other word we can come up with of the day, week, month, year, all of the above. He has stepped down as the head of the FA. He was, up until, it sounds like maybe today, a vice president of FIFA. And he has stepped down from that role, according to 442. There was some political issues here. It wasn't that he was trying to keep that role. He wanted to step down once all of this broke, and we'll talk about it in a second. UEFA wanted him to stay because they didn't want to miss out on representation on the FIFA Council. It sounds like now that, yes, UEFA said, following a telephone call this morning between the UEFA president and Greg Clark, they agreed with Greg Clark's proposal that he should step down with immediate effect from his position as a UEFA representative on the FIFA Council. He said a whole bunch of things. Like, it's not even just one thing that he said that he got popped for and got in trouble with. He insulted black players. He insulted South Asian people. He insulted gay people, and he insulted women. Like, he pretty much hit everything here.
Yeah.
Answering questions at a British parliamentary hearing. I mean, it's not even he got caught on a hot mic on something. It's not even somebody recorded him without him knowing. He's at a hearing, and he said these horribly stupid, outdated, nonsensical things.
Yeah.
My unacceptable words in front of Parliament. My unacceptable words in front of Parliament. That's what he had to say about this.
Yeah.
We're a disservice to our game and to those who watch, play, referee, and administer it. This has crystallized my resolve to move on. Maybe it should crystallize your resolve to actually get into the year 2020 and realize that you are living in 1842. I am deeply saddened that I have offended those diverse communities in football and that I and others worked so hard to include. Well, it doesn't sound like you wanted to include them. So bye, Greg Clark. Bye from FIFA. Bye from the FA. And, yeah, y'all got a lot of work to do in the FA. Lots and lots of work to do at the FA. But he is not going to be on the FIFA committee. That was down to some politics because UEFA wanted him to stay on until they could replace him, was what I had read. He wanted to walk away from everything, and they were trying to figure out how that would work. So I guess they've come to some solution that UEFA won't be unrepresented on the FIFA Council, but we'll see how that goes down. But he is out of everything, thankfully.
Yeah, I'm not even going to. I mean, you did there's an article by Paul McGinnis over at The Guardian, and it breaks down everything that Clark said in this parliamentary meeting, and it just blows your mind how stupid people can be sometimes. And Clark hit all of them all right in a row, and good riddance. Bye. And that's the short version of what I could say. Otherwise, I'm going to get really wound up, and it's just. And
it's not worth getting really wound up, John. Like, that's the thing, is he's an idiot, and he acted like an idiot publicly in front of Parliament. So he's getting what idiots get. He's getting kicked out of everything. So bye, adios, and there's no reason to get worked up. He's gone. Now it's what FIFA and UEFA, because he was representing both of them, and the FA do to fix this. That's what's important. Getting worked up about an idiot isn't worth your trouble. It isn't worth your heart rate. So don't worry about it.
Yeah. All right. So I won't worry about it.
No, he's an idiot. He's gone. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Winter Wind on Twitch Pitch. If Barcelona slashes unilaterally, talking about contracts, and breaks contracts, could that open up Messi walking in January on a free? Yeah, it absolutely could. I mean, I think everything's on the table right now. That's the craziness here. Because, I mean, he's out of contract in June anyway. He can sign a pre-contract in January. If they have to, and I would assume he would be one that they would not try to affect his contract because they know that they could potentially sell him in January for something, anything, 10 million, 15 million, whatever you can get from whoever could pay it.
Yeah.
I think they'd rather do that and get something rather than nothing. But yeah, I think everything is on the table. If everybody says, no, we're not gonna pay you anything for him because we know he's going to be available on a free here shortly. Just we're gonna have a staring contest with you and wait for him to be available. Then maybe not. But I think everything is possible when it comes to Barcelona right now. And you're looking at Messi. Some will be looking at Griezmann, although he hasn't really been doing a whole lot lately. No. Some will be looking at Ansu Fati. Some will be looking at Pedri. I mean, there's so many different pieces there that could have different meaning to different people. I mean, you look at the back line, Liverpool will be looking. They should be. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If pieces become available, then they need something. So it's going to get weird there. Like, Real Madrid is trying to be responsible about it. It sounds like they have kept a good relationship between the board and the playing staff. They're trying to work together to manage all of this stuff. When you've got Real Madrid, who has handled things well financially, having to go back for more pay cuts, and you've got Barcelona, who is staring at bankruptcy, like really looking at it. It's not around the corner. It's not over the mountain and through the hills. It's right there looking at them.
It's right through the window.
It's in the house. It's in the room. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the problem. Is you're weeks away from that. Those two clubs are having these problems. The rest in Spain, the rest in other countries, I mean, it's going to get bonkers. It's going to get absolutely bonkers.
Okay, so then with Barcelona, let me ask you a question. I know, obviously, if you're anybody looking to shore up any deficiencies that you have, you mentioned Liverpool, and that to me is one of them. If you're Barcelona, then, who do you try to build your future around?
You don't have any ability to do that.
I was going to say, knowing what your financial situation is, can you even do that?
No, you have no ability to do that. You got to take whatever you can get, I think. You're past the ability to have a strategy. I mean, you are at the liquidation point. You are at the point of, these are the assets I have. I have to sell as many assets as possible to try to continue to function as a business. You can't have a strategy. Like, that's done. You'd love to keep Ansu Fati. You'd love to keep Pedri. You'd love to keep your players who are under the age of 22 and build around them. Those are some of your most valuable assets. So you can't. You got to do whatever you can do. And that's where they are. I mean, they haven't been run well as a club. Bartomeu put them into this position. He did not see a pandemic coming that would have exacerbated it, but you were run poorly, so the pandemic hits you harder. There's no way around that. But it's real. I mean, it's to the point that I don't know what they look like after this series is done of moves, because they're going to have to ship everybody. Anybody that they can sell, they're going to have to sell. Yeah. And they might not even get to that point. They might have to break contracts because they can't pay them. And then I don't know what happens there. I don't know the mechanisms in Spain, UEFA, FIFA for that situation. Let's say they can't pay Antoine Griezmann and they say we're going to pay Messi because we think there's an asset here. We can't pay Griezmann. Go do what you want to do.
I was going to say that would mean like instant free agency.
No, nothing. How does it mean instant free agency? He's got a contract.
But if you're breaking the contract,
but it's not. But this is what I'm saying, John. That doesn't work that way. Nothing works that way. It's not just I missed a paycheck, so now he's a free agent. No, come on. Like, I don't know the legal terms. That's the thing. This is uncharted territory here. Like, players. How many times have we talked about South America where a player's under contract and hasn't been paid for 6 months? They're not an instant free agent. So what has to happen to become that? Can a player go file for free agency because they can when they're not getting paid to FIFA? Is it one paycheck? Is there some kind of leeway? I mean, I don't know. This hasn't happened with a major club.
Right.
But yeah, just because you miss a paycheck doesn't mean you become an instant free agent. Nothing's that simple. Come on now.
Well, and I would think, at least just in looking at it, that you could have agents who would sit there and notice an opportunity for their clients and go, okay, well, Barcelona is not being...
Do South American agents not pay attention to opportunities for their clients? I mean, we talked about it with Cecilio Dominguez at Independiente. He hadn't been paid for months, and they ended up selling him to Austin FC.
Right.
But one of the reasons they sold him was so they could make good with him because they owed him money. So, I mean, his agent's not a dummy. Like his agent wasn't sitting there like, oh, well, I guess there's just nothing I can do. I mean, you can't just become a free agent because you want to because a club misses a paycheck. But what's the line?
Right.
Where is it? What do you have to do to make that happen? Those are the questions that I have, because as good as Cecilio Dominguez could be for Austin FC in MLS, if we're talking a Lionel Messi, a Gerard Piqué, a Sergio Busquets, and Antoine Griezmann, we're having a different conversation. Right. And there's going to be a line of people outside the door if they could become a free agent in some period of time. So that's going to be a very different conversation. We just don't know all the terms because we've never seen this before.
Right. No, like I said, I just wonder where the line is, and you've got agents looking at
contracts. But I mean, we're worried about hypotheticals and all this stuff right now. Look, they're not going to be able to pay their salaries. We don't know the terms of it. They're going to have to sell as many people as they can in January, it's looking like, because if they haven't been able to sit down and have these negotiations and come to an understanding of players will take X amount of pay cut, they're not going to figure it out in 10 days unless the club blinks and gives the lowest amount back to the lowest amount of a pay cut they can and make it work, and the players accept it, or the club just does it and basically says, take us to court. I don't know. I don't see it getting fixed in 10 days.
Yeah.
So it's going to get uglier. And you don't have a president there. So, I mean, that's the thing, is you don't even have anybody running the club who is in charge. So you have a board that wasn't elected that is in there because the other president walked because he didn't want to get voted out in a vote of no confidence. And they're the ones who have to make these decisions. And they're massive decisions for the future of a massive club and business. And I don't know. I don't know how this goes down. I don't know if the Spanish government bails them out. I have no idea where this is going to go. This is going to get crazy messy. Really, really weird.
Messy with a Y.
Yes, John. Very good.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how screwed up is this?
57? I mean, this is a different level. This is not anything we've ever seen in the game at this point. There's not a comparison. Like, Leeds was crazy. This is a million times crazier. Because as big as Leeds was, they had a gradual fall to where they really hit financial problems. Barcelona was... Where did they get knocked out of the Champions League last year? Semis?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a club that's still huge. And they might not be able to make their payroll. So, there's no comparison. We'll just have to wait and see where this goes. Okay, Twitch pitch stuff before we get to Bart at 10 o'clock, and then we'll get into Twitter as well on a Thursday Thoughts edition of the show. Matt talking about Moreno says, I think that happens sooner rather than later. Free up the DP for a number 6, and if Barco leaves, then a number 10 DP or a left-winger DP, I would say, could factor in. You want as much to work with as you can. If you can do it, and I don't think it's the club making a decision to do it. I think it's when can they do it according to the rules, because when you have a player to sign and you can do that, you will do it. It's just when can you actually do that. The Barco one, look, the situation we're talking about in Europe does affect Ezequiel Barco's future too, because there might not be an offer for him in January. And that's not because he's not valued, it's because there's no money to spend on a player who would be a bit of a project, who would be looked at for potential. Clubs might not be able to make those kind of signings in January. So we'll have to wait and see. But it's going to be a weird one to watch, because I don't think we know. Burn talking about Alaba said Hansi Flick said he wanted Alaba to stay until the summer. They don't need a few million. So their sporting director said they don't need that money. I don't think they'll move him in January. That's what Burn says. I would agree with you. I think that's the idea here. But now Liverpool with such a need because of the Gomez one, does Liverpool come in with an offer for a player that you're going to let walk that you need to take? It could. It could. So I think maybe the landscape's changed a little bit. I'm with you. I don't think it's likely because Bayern's not desperate. Liverpool is, so they might spend like they're desperate. And then maybe it's just take it. The talk in Germany, rather than Alaba, is Kabak from Schalke or Upamecano from Leipzig to Liverpool in January. Those I don't know Kabak's price tag. The Upamecano one is really weird because he's been linked to Madrid. He's been linked to Barcelona. I mean, I don't see those happening. That one could get pricey. But if you could get him and Liverpool's got the money to spend, maybe they go in that direction. I think Alaba would be like the backup to those. If they can't get those deals done and they have to go and overpay to get Alaba in, maybe they do that. And maybe they hit a number that Bayern just says, you know what, we're kind of being financially irresponsible if we don't take that. Yeah. Okay, Jason Nix is going with a total non sequitur. That's what we do around here. I guess you guys have to put a game that you're streaming since this is a game streaming platform, but it's still weird to me when I get the Twitch alerts that SDH is streaming FIFA 21. Yeah, I put that category in because you pick a category and that came up. I should probably change that back to, I think, just generic soccer. I don't think it's helping anything. Maybe it's confusing people. Katie Weaver says that Clark and Deloy Hansen can go start a soccer team together as the Plonkers. I'm with that. Yeah, I'm totally with that. Ragamuffin is bored by Messi potentially leaving on a free. He says it's a non-story. Ragamuffin, man, I don't know. He's going to leave on a free. Like, that part's going to happen. Or he can leave on a free because he's not signing a new deal at Barcelona. Right. I don't see that happening at all. But does he go in January on some sort of a free? I don't expect it. I think they'll try to get some money for him in January if they do it then. Yeah. But we're just in an area here that I have no idea where this is going to go. So it's not a non-story because you're talking about one of the best players in the world potentially going to Manchester City for nothing next season, or PSG, which has come up here lately. But Messi's father said there's been no contact with PSG, so I don't know. I think it's a big story. I mean, if you have Messi and Ronaldo both move in the next year to different clubs, that's a massive story. Massive story.
Oh, I have our Macedonia update, by the way.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Prior to June 2018, the use of the name Macedonia was disputed between Greece and the then Republic of Macedonia. The Prespa Agreement of June 2018 saw the country change its name to the Republic of North Macedonia 8 months later. Then they got into non-binding national referendums that were approved, even though you didn't have a quorum or a simple majority of the voters. Parliament approves the name change. Vote to amend the Constitution was back in January of 2019. Amendment was entered into force in February, ratified, read to NATO. Despite renaming of the country, guess what? The
What?
country is still unofficially referred to as Macedonia by its citizens in the local media.
Because it was Macedonia, but they're fighting.
It's now
over
the Republic of North Macedonia.
We had Scandinavian bots, potentially, maybe Icelandic ones. Ragamuffin thinks it's the Icelandic bots getting revenge for me calling their national team dumb, boring, and bad soccer.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
It's bad soccer. Iceland's boring. Burned about Barca. They need to build their future around La Masia players. I completely and utterly agree. I just don't know where they are in that kind of situation. Winter says if it's possible, they'll try to retain Fati, Pedri, Puig, Dest, De Jong, Trincao. But at this point, I mean, are you going to be able to do that? I don't think you keep all of them if you get to this desperate situation. Byrne thinks they won't renegotiate they thinks that Goldman Sachs will renegotiate the debt. They're not going to let Barca go bankrupt. I would tend to agree. I don't want to get to that situation if I'm Barcelona, though. I don't want to have to hope that they renegotiate the debt because I don't know what Goldman Sachs' situation is either. In the past, absolutely. Totally agree with you. They would just renegotiate it, kick it down the calendar a while and deal with it then. I don't know. I'm not sure. Byrne says you can't break a labor contract in Europe. That doesn't work. They'd be forced to pay. If they don't have it, that's where I'm confused, and that's where things get different. I know country to country and continent to continent. So I'd be really fascinated to see where this goes. It's getting to a very bleak point, and I don't know how they solve it at this point because they've broken the relationship with the players. They don't even have leadership at the moment. I don't know how Barcelona solves the problem. The players don't seem willing. Like, if Real Madrid's players are like, yeah, we understand, we'll take another pay cut, okay. And Barcelona players are like, we're not taking a pay cut again. What, you crazy?
Yeah.
And a lot of that's down to the treatment that they've had over the years, and I don't know how you solve it. I don't know how this gets done. You better be begging to Goldman Sachs, that's for sure.
Well, here's a Goldman Sachs update for you.
Uh-huh.
Goldman Sachs publicly declared not only that it accepts responsibility, this is from the Globalist and Frank Vogel's article from 2 days ago. Goldman Sachs publicly declared not only that it accepts responsibility for engaging in a massive global bribe paying, but that it will also take the unprecedented step of cutting compensation to current and recently retired top executives by close to $100 million. Just part of a landmark outcome of corruption charges that have resulted in the bank paying in excess of $5.5 billion U.S. to settle charges brought against it by a slew of national authorities.
So they're not in a fun place either.
No.
Good times.
Largest fines of their kind paid for the criminal payments by a U.S. corporation to foreign government officials.
Jeez. A couple updates on the defenders we talked about a second ago. Both have release clauses, which is a good thing if you are Liverpool, and both are really nice release clauses as well. Kabak, 25 million euro. Upamecano is 42 million euro, 45 million, somewhere in that ballpark. A little bit of discrepancy between Johannes and Burned. If that's a release clause,
yeah,
there's going to be a line of people willing to pay it in January. Liverpool would be at the front of that line. It's going to come down to the personal terms with the player because that's where the negotiating will happen. Is one club will say, we'll give you this, and somebody will say, we'll give you more, and we'll give you more than that, and that's where it's going to happen. Man, that's a low release clause. That's some poor setting up here. That's not good. Okay, Ricky Ricardo can't watch the random Asian match, so he's going to watch the Masters, and then that's not happening. Are they still not playing yet?
I mean, they were supposed to tee off at 7:30, right?
Yeah, and they were delayed a long time ago.
Okay.
At 7:30.
Well, I'm switching channels just to see. So we're in commercial. So apparently it appears that they're still in delay.
Ay, Dios mío.
You and Bryson DeChambeau, you're waiting for Bryson to just go beefy all over Augusta National. I know you.
That's gross, John. That's a really disgusting thing to say. But yes, Bryson will be hitting the ball a long way. That's for sure.
He's going to hit it in the water on 11, and he's going to get like an 8.
And then he'll drive the green on a par 4 twice. I mean, it's just it's all over the map. Yep. Katie says, what bearing do you think World Cup 26 has on the Atlanta United front office right now? Incentive for new coach to have team be the host, dissuade A and B from burning bridges with Carlos because he's on the organizing committee, right? I don't think there's any issues with Carlos Bocanegra with the front office, first off. I mean, it's not a campaign. I don't think that's the fair way to put it, but that's a storyline and a narrative that people are trying to create. I don't think there is any friction there at all.
Yeah.
So I don't even think that factors into it, Katie. I don't know where that is being brought to validity from, because there's nothing to go on. The part about the organizing committee, I mean, Carlos is on committees with the U.S. Soccer Federation, which is no surprise. There's a lot of former players on committees and involved in different things. So I don't think he's exactly on the organizing committee. Maybe he is on a committee related to the World Cup. I'll have to double check. He's not organizing the event, I think is the way to put it. Like, is he on a committee that's involved in it? Potentially, but he's not on the committee like picking venues and things like that. I don't think it has any bearing because Atlanta will have World Cup 2026 matches. That will happen. They could have up to the semifinal. I'd be shocked if they don't have anything at least up to the quarterfinal, but I think they're going to get a semi.
Yeah.
I think that's a done deal. I don't see that changing because the problem that the organizing committee's had, everything's been delayed like a year now. So I don't see any surprises. Like what you'll see occasionally, and I've studied the 94 bid a little bit, you saw Orlando kind of come out of nowhere in that one because Orlando didn't have a huge soccer history. Everybody thought Tampa would get World Cup games because Tampa had a soccer history, and Tampa was one of the first local organizing committees, and they were selling tickets early, ticket deposits, all kinds of things. Like Tampa was a shoe-in for stuff. Miami was a shoe-in for the final for 94 at the very beginning. But then Miami got the Marlins, so they didn't have a stadium because Joe Robbie, which is now Hard Rock, which has been renovated totally, like that was built in a lot of ways based off the San Siro in Milan. There were a lot of similarities between those two. And FIFA saw that stadium as the best soccer venue in the United States when they awarded the World Cup to the United States in 88. The Marlins started in 92. World Cup was in 94. So everything changed really quick. Tampa, local organizing committee, didn't build the right relationships with the national organizing committee. They ended up losing out, and Orlando kind of snuck in at the wire and had sold a bunch of tickets and had a bunch of local partnerships, and they got World Cup games. You don't have the way for that to happen now. So you're going to have to go to the obvious ones. Like, I don't expect somebody to be a shock here. Like, there were some like college stadiums that were in the mix at one point for World Cup 2026, which would be wild, which would be cool, but it's a huge sell job to get into that list, and there's no time to sell. There's nothing happening right now with the organizing committee. So Atlanta will get games. I think they'll get a lot of significant games. I don't know if it makes it more attractive to a coach. I don't think it really does because that's so far down the road. Other than just Atlanta's a big soccer city. I mean, maybe that's the only thing that kind of is a little bit of a boost, but I don't think it's a detriment anyway, and I don't think it's a selling point. What are you watching, John?
Trying to get my Masters update at the same time, and SportsCenter is leading with highlights from the MAC.
So that would probably mean they're not playing.
They are not. We've had 3 threesomes make it onto the course, and play has been suspended ever since the 7:21 a.m. group was scheduled to tee off on number 1. We have 5 golfers at even par, 3 at +1, 1 at +2. So play has been suspended basically for about 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Okay. Here's your music.
Well, now that we're getting we're this close to having Bart Keeler hang out with us, we're going to thank our friends at Apolinski & Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here, and the SDH network. Wrongful death and serious injury matters. There's one phone call that you need to make if you want to have a conversation with an individual. You want to talk to somebody at Steve Apolinski and Apolinski & Associates. Do it a couple different ways. You can shoot Steve an email directly, STEVE, at aa-legal.com. You can get a free consultation by giving him a call at 404-377-9191. Or you can go onto the World Wide Web. Large device or small, laptop, desktop, phone, however you want to do it, mobile device. Hit the enter key, the return key, the arrow key, whatever advances the screen to the homepage at aa-legal.com. A pop-up window pops up when that happens, because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up magically. And we still don't know who is at the other end of the discussion for that pop-up window. Could be Steve. We don't know. We need this answer. Could be Bart. We'll ask him when he comes up here in just a second or two. But 24/7, 365 and a quarter, any questions that you have can be answered by the individual at the other end of the curtain. The great and powerful Oz, or the great and powerful Apolinski. You can get your questions answered that way. Over 30 years of experience, over $40 million in judgments for clients in Georgia and Alabama. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend Magazine for being top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, the website for Apolinski and Associates LLC is aa-legal.com.
I think that's the longest one of those you've done.
Yeah, pretty close, but I was waiting for that bass riff, you know?
I think you missed it.
I did.
Because it was already gone, because that was the longest one you've done.
Rats!
You missed the bass. All right, let's get Mateo on board and see if he can bring Bart into the mix. Settle down over there. All right, our U.S. men's national team correspondent, Bartums Prime, who you know on social media, Bart Keeler, is being efforted to join us to talk about U.S. and Wales. All right, there we go. Mateo gets it done. What's up, Bart? How are you?
I'm doing well, Jason. Thanks for having me on this morning.
No, thanks for jumping in. We've been saving all of the U.S. and Wales talk for you. We haven't even gotten into it. I guess the biggest headline that wasn't a surprise, I mean, I saw you tweeted, I was kind of in the same boat, like Christian Pulisic leaving the camp. We all expected that. Would have loved to have seen him with some of these players, but it does open up a door for some other guys.
Yeah, I think that if you have followed Christian Pulisic and Chelsea this season, you pretty much knew that he was going to come into the camp, and that was about, as much as he would do. I wasn't expecting him to come off the British island, but I think it definitely gives some chances to guys like Julianez and possibly Conrad de la Fuente, guys that, especially with Conrad, that people want to see. Uli definitely showed out in the February-January camp earlier this year. He's the only player to have scored for the United States men's national team this year.
God, that's crazy.
Which is it brings it all into context that this is only the second game we played in this crazy year, and the only game we played was the February friendly against Costa Rica. So I do expect that Christian's absence will give some younger guys time to shine, but I think his presence is super important, and that's kind of the reason why he was called in regardless. Obviously, going from London to Swansea wasn't exactly the toughest trip he's ever had to make, but having him in camp to welcome some of the new guys who, Greg Berhalter is trying to court to bring in for, possibly a full-time gig. I think that Pulisic's presence is important there.
10 players chasing after their first cap in this run, Bart. When it comes to the match today, what are you looking for? And I'm not looking at results, win-loss draw. I'm not looking at that. But when it comes to this match today, what specifically are you looking at with this group of players that has been assembled by Greg Berhalter for this particular break?
Yeah, you kind of hit on it. I don't know if you can expect any result because, again, this team hasn't played since February of this year, February 1, 285 days ago. Berhalter hasn't had any players in his kind of direct tutelage all year. I think they've had a total of 2 full team training sessions. So what you're looking for is just for the team to play with energy. I think that was the biggest shift in the Berhalter. I've joked calling it, trademark the system and copyright the group.
Yes.
I think that the system early in 2019 was rather boring. Let's just call it what it was. It was uninspiring to many fans. So November, after a very listless result, a loss up in Toronto, things flipped, and there was a greater energy in the team. They were more on the front foot, and that continued into the February game this year. So I'm hoping that we just see some sort of energy, some quick play, both defensively and in the attacking third. I think that you will see players who aren't used to playing together trying to figure out how to play together. But I think overall, you want to just see this team have fun, because I think if guys are having fun and playing with a high energy on the field, you're going to create a solid core group going forward of these European guys, and hopefully entice some of the possible dual nationals to stay with the U.S. program.
Are you kind of in the same boat as me here? Because I think we were both pretty negative on Burr Halter at the beginning. And from what we saw on the field, I think the hire was fine. I would have liked to have seen Pareja maybe get the opportunity, and definitely would have liked to have seen some other people get interviewed. But the hire's fine. I think Burr Halter did a good job with Columbus. It's when he first came in, he managed it like a club team. And it was trying to do too much with a national team that you just don't have time for. But maybe it was that Canada loss that it snapped into him that, look, you're going to get a training session or two. You're going to have to keep it simpler. And it's felt more like a national team since then. I think he's rounded the corner. I think he gets the job now.
Yeah, I mean, we joked about having the group. He does refer to it as the group, and there's nothing wrong with having a core group of players who are part of the national team. But it seemed like Berhalter's, I mean, you go back and look at the caps given in that 2019 season, that it was pretty much the same group of guys. He called in some MLS players at the start, kind of in January, that camp in 2019, kind of filled it in with some of the, no-duh European players in March and then the Gold Cup that summer, but it wasn't experimental. He didn't try to do anything outside of his comfort zone, because he was trying to instill this style of play. It was, we're going to do this possession-based attack. We're going to try to, as he loves, and I don't disagree, he loves to use the phrase line-breaking passes. He loves to use the phrase, disorganized through possession. He wants the opponent's defense to be split apart from guys passing the ball, and that's great. And it worked in Columbus for him really well. But as you noted, the problem was that you have a couple of training sessions to get guys prepared for the game. And it just seemed like the very intricate permutations that come with this kind of system. We see it at Manchester City with Pep Guardiola. You see it at Leeds with Bielsa. To an extent, you see it with Klopp at Liverpool. Any high-level club is playing under this, right? Like, they're playing in this style that if A, then B, C, D, or F. It's supposed to be a thinking man's game, but at the same time, you have these options that are presented to you. And I think that at the national team level, guys coming from different clubs all across the world, different leagues. I think we have I want to say 13 leagues represented even in this assembly of players. It's not easy because they're just they're not used to that. They're used to whatever their club is. So I also don't think it used the skills that American players have to their best advantage. I mean, I'd love to say we're this super intelligent, creative, attacking country, but at the end of the day, that's not where we are from a player development standpoint. As a guy who goes out and referees every weekend, I don't see that. It's trying to get there. It's just not there yet. So using a little bit more, listen, Jordan Morris is probably one of the better players we're going to have in this program. That's not the style of game that he plays. Even to an extent, Christian Pulisic, that's not the style of game you want Christian Pulisic to play. You'd rather have him going at players, trying to take them on, beating them and getting a cross in or getting a shot off. And I just think that Berhalter had to adjust. I think that the 2-0 loss in Canada in October of 2019, which seems like a decade ago.
Man, it does.
It was a wake-up call. He realized, oh, crap, this isn't working. But I think the biggest difference, honestly, was defensively. They defended for some reason in this weird 4-4-2 block, and it was very passive. It was like, okay, wait for the other team to come at you, take the ball off, and then go. And they switched to more of a pressing 4-3-3 style. So you're trying to, which I think works in CONCACAF, honestly. You're putting pressure on less talented players up the field, right? Like, your defenders are oftentimes the players that aren't as comfortable with the ball. So putting pressure on them higher up the field is going to hopefully result in more turnovers or at least poorer passes out of the back. And I think that was the real difference. And we saw that again against Costa Rica in this February friendly that we just had. And I'm hoping that will continue. I'd rather see a high defensive energy than super great passing on offense.
So, Bart, when it comes to this group of players that have been assembled, I know that the casual fan knows some of the higher profile names, and they understand their place as a part of this roster. If you were to talk to a casual fan or someone that doesn't have the depth of knowledge about all of the different leagues that are a part of this particular group, who else would you sit there and say, hey, look at this guy, look at this guy, look at this guy, that aren't those shiny objects? Who would you like to see folks look at, and who would you like to see shine out of that next group?
Well, that depends on what you would define as who you wouldn't see. Because I would say Anthony Robinson is the guy I have my eye on this week.
Yeah.
Between this friendly and the friendly coming up against Panama, just because he is someone who has a really high potential at that left back position. It's also a position that the United States men's national team has historically not had a lot of great depth at. But he plays for Fulham. So does that make him a known player? I don't think so. He just got to Fulham this year. Fulham is obviously not performing super well.
No. Not really.
But I would say that Anthony Robinson he's not as young as you might think. I think that's something that does stick out. He's 23, so he's Olympic eligible, but he's from that 97 year, which is hasn't produced a whole lot of talent, which is interesting. But I'd love to see him take that step and really take a hold of that left back position. So I would say Anthony Robinson is definitely a guy to look out for. And he's fun. He's an attacking left back. Who doesn't love an attacking fullback? Those are great to watch. Other than that, it just depends on who gets to play, because there's going to be a lot of guys who are going to shuffle in and out. I would love to see Conrad De La Fuente and Richie Ledesma get time. They're younger players who are trying to – I think Conrad is further from first-team minutes than Ledesma, but Ledesma would be someone who, if he can get on the field at an attacking midfield position or maybe a winger position, would be interesting to watch, because kid who's at young PSV – has made appearances for the senior team at PSV. PSV, obviously a pretty good Eredivisie side. If he can break in there, that would be a very good step for the men's national team. And then up top, I think everyone's curious to see Nico Giochini. No offense to him, he plays in Ligue 2. It's not a league that's on television. No. We don't get to watch it. I kind of want to see what he has to offer at this level, because between he and Sebastian Soto playing, they're the only two players in this roster outside of Chituru, and I'm going to mispronounce his name. So Chituru, the goalkeeper at Leicester, mm-hmm. They're the only two players who aren't on a senior team that is in a top level. So it is a question of do these guys have the quality? And more importantly, if you're an MLS follower, how do these guys displace guys like Daryl Dike, Ayo Akinola, Jeremy Abobasi, who even Jesus Ferreira, mm-hmm. who have shown that they can maybe play that striker position. So I'm interested to see if Giochini starts. I kind of would prefer Soto to start, but I think Giochini will start, and I'm very curious to see how this guy from Cannes will play.
Yeah, I'm curious to see him too. I'm a big Sebastian Soto fan. I think he's very underrated in general, because it feels to me like the fan base has anointed Josh Sargent as the number 9, no questions asked. Nobody else is in competition for it. But you just mentioned a bunch of guys are in competition for it. I think Soto will be in competition. Giochini, we got to see. Daryl Dike, I would not rule him out of anything with what we've seen from his development. I think it's an open competition up top.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, you're going to have 27 competitions next summer to play these guys.
That's also true.
It starts in May. You have a U20 World Cup. You'll have a U17 World Cup, I think, next fall sometime, but they're still going ahead with the U20 World Cup in May. Yeah. Obviously, I don't know if any of those guys will get time there, but it's something that you have to look at. Where's your striker pool? especially if you're not really going to have a guy like Josie Altidore in the mix, because who knows if he'll be healthy.
Yeah.
Gyasi Zardes, I think, as much as I dislike his game from a technical standpoint, he's probably the favorite to start. But that's only maybe in, Nations League finals and Gold Cup. Who plays in the Olympics? You have, a whole Olympic tournament to find 2 or 3 guys who might be that next striker. That's the thing here is you look at this roster, and I think you have 15 guys who can play at the Olympic Games next summer. So I think that's probably a huge thing to look at. Now, Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie probably aren't going to be those two. We'll see. I don't know if they'll be, Christian Pulisic won't be playing in the Olympics for a lot of reasons. But you look at that striker position, you're saying there's a lot of depth there. I don't know if that depth is exactly great quality. So who's going to be the guy to take a hold of that I don't know if we'll find that out this set of friendlies, but it is definitely the position where you go, ooh, not sure how I feel about it.
We got a question from Burned on the Twitch pitch. What do you think about Burr Halter's dual nationals recruiting zeal? Burn says it's great to see. Looks like he'll put up a fight against the Mexican Federation in the future for Mexican-American kids, and obviously what he's doing in Europe right now.
So I kind of would lean toward Burn that I think the Mexican dual nationals are more important. Because you have a lot of them in the United. I mean, you just have a lot of them in the United States. I think it's great to chase after European dual nationals. The fact is that they have a lot of them are coming to the United States men's national team because they're not probably going to get a lot of time with their maybe first choice national team. That's different. Serginho Dest, I think, probably would have been playing for the Netherlands had he chosen them. Maybe not now, but in the future for sure. I love it. I think that was the biggest criticism of Greg Berhalter when he came on. I think that was the biggest fear that, oh, man, he's just going to bring in MLS guys or, European guys who are no duh. He wasn't really going to recruit that well, and he dispelled that. Now, Yunus Musa is really fun and a very exciting prospect. Does that mean he'll play for the U.S. men's national team going forward? No, this doesn't cap tie him at all. He's still 17. England and Gareth Southgate have said that there's, they just don't want to progress him faster than he needs to. But obviously for the United States, we can do that because we need him to be that way. We don't, we're not looking at him to be a part of our U20 roster. We're looking at this guy saying, can you help our full senior men's national team right now? Which is an intriguing prospect instead of having to go to the U17 World Cup, the U20 World Cup, that kind of progression. Being able to be fast track to the top is a very intriguing proposition for a guy like that. But it's not just Musa, even to an extent, Uli Yanez was someone who possibly could have gone to Mexico. I don't think he was really truly considering it, but he same with Richie Ledesma. I think they're pretty solidly American. But good to seal that. I think the reason Soto got called up is for that same reason. We don't want him to go to Chile.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy that you want to have in your pool as opposed to someone else's player pool. And Nico Giochini, same thing. I mean, he technically can play for Italy. I think a couple others, if I'm not mistaken. But getting him in and bringing him into the program, getting him around a guy like to me, the favorite thing I've seen on social media is just Weston McKennie in general. Love seeing anytime Weston McKennie is on the U.S. men's national team social media. He's hilarious. Getting around Weston, Tyler, and Christian and getting them into the program is important. So loving the fact that we're not seeing Greg Berhalter not fight for dual nats. I think that is a massive change from what we thought Berhalter was kind of going to be at the start of his tenure.
Drew Keister is in on Twitter talking about the match today, Bart, and he says, is Weston going to score today? Yes.
Drew, would love to see that. I got to be honest, I don't know if we score today. Wales is actually a pretty stingy defense. They've conceded 3 goals all year. All 3 of those were to England in a friendly. We'll see. They are weirdly, they've gone back to a very typical British style of football recently, where it is defend well. They're going to force you to cross the ball in from wide positions, and they're going to just head the ball out and clear it. We will see. I think that if you are expecting goals in this game, you've come to the wrong match. Wales is also not. They've scored 3 goals in 5 matches this year, and they've been playing since September. So I just, we'll see. I would love for Weston to get a goal, but this isn't Cuba. This is Wales, and we will see.
Gio Reyna turns 18 tomorrow.
Yep.
Is he the future?
He might be. I mean, he might be the present, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, I think so. One of the great theories I've seen in this U.S. men's national team rebirth after the 2018 World Cup, there is a lot written about that, quote, lost generation. There are the years, which sadly are my birth years, so I'm part of this. This is my bad. The 89 to 93 years of just where are these guys? I think in this roster you have Sebastian Lletget, for reasons that I don't necessarily agree with for calling him in, but he's a great player. I'm happy to have him for the U.S. men's
Good
national
veteran
team.
presence, yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
But outside of that, there's not a whole lot of talent from that age group. This time around, after the 2018 World Cup, we started talking about this theory of the copy and paste theory. So you have guys like Pulisic, Adams, McKennie in that age group. If I'm correct, it's the 97 to 99 age group, right? So breaking it down by birth years. Then so you have that, and the goal is you copy and paste that to that next 3 to 4 year segment. And right now you have 7 guys from 2000 to 2001 on this roster. And then you even have some from the 2002 age group in Reyna and Musa. So looking at that from a future standpoint, those are guys who are not even 20 years old. So yeah, if you're looking at 2026, right? Y'all were just talking about that earlier, the 2026 World Cup. Those are the guys who by 2026 are going to be your talisman national team players. They're going to be in their prime for World Cups. World Cup, it's a young man's game. They're going to be at that age where they should hopefully be able to carry your team at the 2026 World Cup. So yes, Gio Reyna is the future. I mean, hopefully he is the guy who's leading us at the 2026 World Cup, and we see him on a podium in late July, or whenever the dates are, in 2026.
You were talking about the numbers, Bart, about how this was not going to be a goal bonanza, and since I am, I guess, the degenerate here on the show and just continue to look for juice boxes and totals and things. You're over under at plus 1.5 is minus 245. At plus 2.5, it's a plus 128. So the fact that this isn't a goal fest seems to be about right.
Yeah, I would not put any juice boxes on.
Generally don't with friendlies, period. You never know where they're going to go. Don't ever try to put your juice boxes on these things. Come on.
No. I would, yeah. I mean, I guess if you're a true degenerate, I know a few, then sure, put some juice boxes on a friendly. But, man, this is going to be – well, for starters, Wales called in 29 people. I think they're down to 28 after Aaron Ramsey departed, and I don't think Gareth Bale's playing. So, okay, they've got 27 guys to pick from to put a match day roster of 18 together. So we don't even know if they'll be playing their first choice lineup because they've got 2 matches coming up after this that are vastly more important than anything they're doing with the men's national team here. They can win their group with a win against Ireland coming up next week or over the weekend and a non-win by Finland, right? So they have a chance to win their Nations League group, which is huge because that brings them to promotion to League A, which is where Wales wants to be. Wales and the United States are very they're not mirrors necessarily, but they're very similar in the way that they're striving to build a culture in their national team to progress them. I mean, they want to finish up that they had that semifinal appearance in the Euros in 2016. They've fallen off a bit. They're trying to revamp that. I don't know if you'll see their first choice lineup because they have 2 important matches, actually important matches after this. So that may be another thing. But it may be fun because they're going to throw kids out there. They've got a lot of young players on this roster. And who knows? I mean, they may come out and say, hey, just go have fun. I mean, Giggs isn't managing, so who knows what's going to happen.
That's a good point.
Yes, true.
It could get weird. All right, we're going to leave with a trivia question, Bart, and you're going to get the first crack at it. You could have 2 17-year-olds today with Reyna and with Musa. I don't know if the U.S. has ever had two 17-year-olds in the same match make their debut, but you've only had 5 17-year-olds play for the U.S. since 2000.
Oh, okay.
How many can you name?
5 17-year-olds. Well, I think Pulisic was one.
He's one.
Trying to think who would have been 17. Tyler Adams, I think, was playing in 2016 or 17.
Not him.
Not him? Okay. Maybe a Michael Bradley. I'm not sure.
No, he was 18. He was close.
Yeah, okay. Man, 17. That's...
A couple of them surprised me. One is still playing in Major League Soccer.
Well, that's a lot of people.
Think of a former.
Beckerman, because I think he's been playing at a professional level since he was 12. So.
No, that's a good shout, but I think he took a while after his youth national team time. Juan Agudelo is that one.
You know what? I forgot how early he started, and then definitely fell off.
That
Juan
game
Agudelo.
against South Africa after the World Cup in 2010. Freddie Adu is one.
Oh, yes.
In 2006. And
that 2007 Youth World Cup team is about the most disappointing thing the United States has ever done. Sorry.
That's a good shout. I got to go back and dig on that one. Your last two, if anybody would get these, and nobody's gotten them on the Twitch pitch either. I don't think anybody's getting them. You're going further back. Bobby Convey in 2000.
Oh, Bobby Convey.
He was supposed to be the man. And had a decent career. I mean, he had a good career.
Yeah, bad.
And Eddie Gavin in 2004.
Yeah, I would not have guessed. I would not have guessed Eddie Gavin for sure.
Eddie Gavin was so good. Yeah. Such a good player. So technical. He did not fit the U.S. stereotype in 2004 as a 17-year-old because he was skilled.
He was like the second coming of John O'Brien, I feel like.
Oh, that's a really good comparison, yeah.
God, we had a Bobby Convey reference on this show.
Yeah.
Hey, Coventry City. I'm sure there's a supporter or two out there.
Did he play Coventry? I know he was Reading. I don't know if he was at Coventry.
Who was at Coventry then? I thought he was at Coventry too. I know he was at Reading.
He might have been a Coventry guy for a little bit of time. I always think of him with Reading and with DC and then bouncing around MLS once he came back.
Well, that's a good shout because those 17-year-olds you mentioned, obviously Freddie Adu, there are going to be multiple documentaries and books written about his stardom as a soccer professional. Eddie Gavin makes a whole lot of sense, but that is also a guy who just never, unfortunately, was able to bring real success to his national team career.
Yeah.
Agudelo is definitely one of those. We talk about the lost generation of talent who we thought was going to be good. I mean, I put him and Breck Shea in the same kind of breath, which ironically they're both, back in MLS right now, that we thought they were going to be the future and just never panned out. That's interesting.
Could be 2 today. That's wild. I think they both play. I mean, I think Gio starts.
I think they both start, but
really?
It depends on. One, I don't think you bring Musa into this camp and not play him significantly.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's that. They both. My issue with them is they both kind of can occupy similar spaces on the field. It just depends on where Burr Halter wants to set up. I know everyone wants Gio Reyna in the center. I would love Gio Reyna in the center, but I don't think that fits the Burr Halter system. I think you will see Musa and McKennie next to each other because I think they're very similar. They both can play that box-to-box midfielder, which, whether you want to call them a dual 8 or a dual 10, whatever term you want to throw at it, and they're neither. But I think they fit better in front of Tyler Adams. But, man, if that's your midfield, that's really fun. And then I think Reyna starts on the right wing. I know that's not his best position, but I think when you look at the Burr Halter system, he'll be tucked inside, especially as I expect Serginho Dest to be on the right. Reyna can tuck in as Dest just controls that right wing. So I think you might see him actually play more of his natural position of behind the striker.
That makes total sense. Bart, let everybody know where they can follow you, and hopefully we'll have some more USMNT content over at soccerdownhere.net from you.
Yeah, so you can follow me at BartimusPrime19 on Twitter. I generally talk about soccer. I also talk about football a lot. Politics has snuck in there recently, so I apologize for that. But yeah, BartimusPrime19 on Twitter. You can also follow the American Outlaws. You can join us today. We'll be doing a watch party via Facebook Rooms. This is the first time we're using that, but check us out there at Atlanta Outlaws on Twitter and on Facebook, Atlanta Outlaws. So you can check us out there.
Awesome. Bart, thanks for the time, and let's touch base on Tuesday before the next friendly.
Yeah, so, you got Wales now, and then probably a more telling friendly against Panama next week, but thank you for having me.
Thanks, Bart.
Yeah, Ben.
All right, let's get caught up on everything else going on. Yeah, I saw that trivia question. I had to throw it out there.
Uh-huh.
You know me with trivia. You've got a little bit of a brawl on social media between Toni Kroos and Aubameyang right now, going back and forth. Let's start with something Toni Kroos said recently, and he is added to the list of people who are criticizing the crowded schedule. So he started out saying something that makes total sense. Criticize UEFA, criticize FIFA for a crowded schedule, overlooking players' interests. He said, at the end of the day, we players are just the puppets of FIFA and UEFA with all these additional competitions that are invented. Nobody is asked. He has a podcast with his brother. He plays in the second division in Germany. He talked about the Nations League as part of this, the plans to expand the Club World Cup to have more clubs. He said, if there was a players' union that could take decisions on these matters, we would not be playing Nations League, nor a Spanish Super Cup in Saudi Arabia, nor a Club World Cup with 20 or more teams. Looks like that's going to get pushed back to June of 22, but still.
Yeah.
Also referred to plans for this European Super League, saying sometimes it's good to leave things alone when they are good. Now, remember, the man who pays Toni Kroos' salary, Florentino Perez, is one of the main supporters of the European Super League. So, might want to keep that one in line. Now, I guess he had more things to say, because I'm trying to get caught up on this. He took some shots at Aubameyang for, I guess, being silly and putting on a mask after he scored a goal. And Aubameyang has popped back at him on Twitter and said, by the way, does Toni Kroos have kids? Just to remember, I did it for my son a few times, and I will do it again. I wish you have kids one day and make them happy. And he posted some pictures of kids who have sent him drawings of him and stuff like that. So now we've got a brawl on social media between players from different places. This is getting ridiculous. Like, I need to see what exactly he said about Aubameyang now. Let's see what we have here. Man, this podcast, Toni Kroos is not making friends at the moment. The quote Sport Bible had from this, the headline was, Real Madrid midfielder Toni Kroos launches bizarre attack on Arsenal's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and his goal celebrations. Quote, Aubameyang once celebrated and took out a mask. That's where it ends with me. I don't think that's a good role model either. What nonsense. Man.
Wow, dude.
Have some fun, bruh.
Yeah. It's like, come on, man.
That's just like, why are you complaining about him putting on a mask after a goal? Here's more, John. Yes, right. He is the no fun police. I find it very silly. Even worse is if there are any objects hidden in their socks. Aubameyang once celebrated and took out a mask. That's where it ends with me. What nonsense.
Yeah, what nonsense. That I agree with Toni Kroos about. What nonsense. Stop being the no fun police. Dude, lighten up. It's a goal celebration. The guy scores, let him celebrate how he wants. Some guys, if it's against their former club, don't celebrate out of respect. Some guys want to have fun with their kids, and they'll put on a mask. Lighten up, Francis.
He put on the Black Panther mask. and did the Wakanda celebration. That had meaning to it. Like, that wasn't just a random, I'm going to put on a silly costume head and run around. What?
Yes, Terrell Owens pulls a Sharpie out of his sock. Yes, Terrell Owens goes into the end zone and dumps a whole bucket of popcorn through his helmet. Lighten up, man.
Ricky Ricardo says that Tony Kroos and Brian McCann should probably hang out. Jason Nix is saying you need some Diet Cheerwine, and Ricky's saying I should back up slowly away from John because he's losing it. I added he's losing it part.
I never had it. Of course, I'm also now just being hit in the knees by my undercarriage on my desk repeatedly, and I can't latch it. So it's just like, well, yeah, it's like the really annoying kid in the movie that just wants to kind of grab on the coattail and is going to continue to do it until you pay attention to it. That's what I'm getting right now with this undercarriage on my desk. So I'm going to keep banging on my knee until I can finally get it hooked back under the desk where it's supposed to go.
Stop touching your undercarriage on camera, John.
I'm not touching my undercarriage on camera. It's touching me, and I'm trying to put it back.
And boom goes the dynamite.
Yeah, whatever, kid.
There's more quotes that are coming out from Mr. Kroos. Goal celebrations like those of Griezmann imitating a video game dance or Aubameyang putting the mask of Spider-Man, these things are ridiculous. If there are rehearsed dances or choreographies, I find it very silly.
Sure. Right, whatever. Tony Kroos is an L7. Is what the old kids used to say. He's an L7. He's a square. Lighten up, Tony.
He's an L7?
He's an L7.
When was that a phrase?
Back in the 1870s.
What does it mean?
L7. He's a square.
L7 is a square. Why is L7 a square?
I don't know. Ask Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon.
Did you really just make an Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon reference on the show?
Yes.
Man, I thought Bobby Convey and Eddie Gavin were old school.
He's an L7, man. He's a square.
Wow, things have really degenerated here on the show. Update on Cristian Pavón and Boca Juniors and LA Galaxy. Tato Aguilera at Sportia on TIC says that if the LA Galaxy want to retain Pavón, they would have to submit a bid of at least $10 million. Otherwise, Pavón must return within the first few days of January of 21. That would be at the end of his loan because it runs through December 31st. And would be available for a hypothetical Libertadores semifinal. So they've backed off a little bit. There was some talk that Boca might try to bring him back as quickly as possible to register him for the Libertadores. For the round of 16 that would be coming up here at the end of the month. Doesn't look like that's going to happen because the Galaxy want to try to keep him. So maybe they have some more time to negotiate. But the bidding starts at $10 million. And it sounds like Boca would be willing to sell. So they're not going to hold out for the 20 that is in the contract. They might sell for less.
You know, L7 is in the Urban Dictionary?
L7, John, be careful.
No, I'm just saying, and it says used in the 50s and 60s to represent being square or old-fashioned or uncool.
All right, just making sure.
People
Urban
would hold up
Dictionary
their
can
thumbs
get you in
and
trouble.
forefingers to create a square shape as a nonverbal representation.
Considering I'm old and I was born in 77, I have no idea what you're getting at right now with breaking out 50s and 60s beach movie people to talk about L7s.
Tony Kroos is an L7. He's a square.
Probably a few more things than that, but just saying. And Jason Nix is worried you're throwing up gang signs now.
No.
Back in the 50s and 60s and their beach gangs. That's where we're at. I'm with Burn. You need to bring Mueller back to the German national team and retire Tony Kroos. You need to retire him with this kind of nonsense. I mean, First off, if you're going to be this much of a stick in the mud, as Ricky Ricardo says.
There you go, stick in the mud.
Then, or an L7, then maybe you shouldn't be doing that podcast and getting yourself in trouble. Yeah. Because I'm just saying, last time I checked, the captain of Tony's club team, Real Madrid, Sergio Ramos, he does some silly dances after he scores goals. And he scores goals quite a bit.
Does he go to his captain and say anything?
No. You think he's going to go tell Sergio Ramos something? Sergio Ramos will have him on a train out of Madrid as fast as possible. Come on now. We know who runs that club. It's Sergio Ramos.
Yeah.
At least for now, anyway.
Yes, at least for now.
Yeah. He's still got at least another year, so they'll re-sign him. He's not going anywhere.
See, Five Stripe Daily, L7, Weenie. It's in the Sandlot also, apparently.
In the Sandlot, okay. Man. I have not heard that term.
That was a period movie.
I've not heard that term ever. Yeah, it's a period movie, so it would make sense. I've never heard that term. Never caught that was it. I mean, I've heard of the band L7.
Yeah, I have not.
I'm not surprised.
Because
one's from the 50s and 60s, and one's from the early 90s, so you know.
Finish the sentence because I knew it was coming.
Good grief. What else is on the Twitters?
Okay, a couple of things, and I'll work backwards.
Okay.
Nick Brawley, is this our best young roster we ever put out for the USMNT? It's unreal how quickly we've seen so many of our young players joining and actually getting minutes for upper-tier clubs. It's an exciting match, even as a friendly and without Pulisic and Sargent.
Yeah, it's the most exciting young roster because I think where we've seen young rosters, usually it's been in January camp and it's been mostly MLS, which is exciting, but you're talking about young players. I mean, I'll work from goalkeepers on down, and we'll consider young players in that 22 or under realm. You got a goalkeeper from Leicester. You've got Cannon playing in the Portuguese First Division. You've got Dest at Barcelona. You've got Richards at Bayern. You've got Adams at RB Leipzig. You've got Johnny at Inter in Brazil. You've got Ledesma with PSV. You've got McKennie with Juve. You've got Musa with Valencia. You've got Otasowie with Wolves. You've got Conrad with Barcelona. You've got Giochini in France. You've got Yanez in Heerenveen. You've got Reina at Dortmund. You've got Soto with Norwich but on loan at Telstar in the Netherlands. You've got Weah at Lille. I mean, that's your under 22s in this roster and where they're at. So, yeah, we've never seen a roster like this. I'm excited about it. Like I've said many times, I could care less about friendlies in general. I'm going to watch this, and I'm excited to see it.
Masters update. Looks like everybody is going to start in about 15 minutes back on the course after a 3-hour weather delay.
Okay.
So your Bryson DeChambeau search will start in about 3 hours. Shelly Thompson-Milliken had a discussion with all of us, saying she went to college in North Carolina during the 90s, lived on Diet Cheerwine and Diet Sundrop, and she had to stick up for my taste buds.
Man, Diet Sundrop sounds even worse.
Yeah, she admits to being a diet drink aficionado, regularly committing the blasphemy of the Diet Arnold Palmer at Chick-fil-A, unsweet tea mixed with Diet lemonade as her go-to beverage.
Oh.
Bruh.
Oh.
I mean, that's out there. I mean, I'll give it a shot just to see, but it's not something I would regularly go to. I mean, I'm a Diet Palmer guy. I mean, Arnold Palmer guy. And I give, who was it? Who is it that put together the Arnold Palmer and put it in a
Arizona iced tea? Thank
you. Yeah, Arizona. Yeah, because I will get Arizona's Arnold Palmers because they're very, very good. Oh yeah, in the tall cans. Reaction from something that went down yesterday, coming from both Colonel and from Tafka.
There's no telling.
The 5 laughter emoji from LGP about the conversation.
Yeah.
And so,
well, for people who maybe are new to the show and maybe missed it, there was a tweet that was quote tweeted by Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic about Frank de Boer being the first manager in Dutch national team history to not win in his first 4. He's got 3 draws. Felipe quote tweeted it. I don't remember what Felipe said. It just
tough start for FDB, and that's a really talented Dutch team.
And Leandro Gonzalez Perez responded to that. So he replied to that. He didn't quote tweet that. He replied to that with 5 laughing emojis.
So
to Felipe's tweet.
Go. Yes, to Felipe's. And so Tafka and the Colonel came in. The Colonel says this speaks volumes, including not throwing a bunch of money at LGP was perhaps a flawed strategy. He was headed to being a captain in Atlanta. #Thursday Thoughts. you roll the dice and sometimes snake eyes.
Wait a minute. So because he laughed at his former manager on Twitter, they should have paid him more money? Okay.
And then,
Look, hold on, too. And
Sure.
this is also taking something and connecting the dots and getting to 5 from 1 plus 2.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos Bocanegra said, and I have not seen this refuted by anybody, and if there's something to refute, then do it, that Leandro Gonzalez Perez's agent said to the club, if there is an opportunity for his client to make more money, that they would be interested in that transfer offer. He said that when he announced the transfer to Tijuana. That's what Bocanegra said to the media at that time. I have not seen that refuted. There has lately become a narrative that he didn't want to be transferred. That wasn't said before. That was said very recently. So now the 1 plus 2 equals 5 conversation has said that Frank wanted him transferred. And that has not been said that I know of. It's been alluded to. I don't think anybody's ever had any concrete information on that.
Right.
But, Colonel, I will disagree that laughing at a former manager on Twitter means you should have paid him more and made him a captain. I did think he was headed to being a captain with this club. I absolutely did. I said that many times. They made a transfer. And from what the club said, and if there's other information, I'd love to see it. What the club said, that's what LGP's representation wanted. So that's where it stands that I know of. Is what it is. I mean, he didn't get along with Frank. He said fine things about Frank in Argentine television after the 2019 season before the transfer. Didn't say anything negative about him. Didn't say anything negative about MLS. So I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't get how it means that they should have paid him whatever he wanted and made him a captain because he's laughing at his former manager on social media. That's not the greatest thing in the world.
And then Tafka says on Leandro's reaction, it's pretty damning evidence that there was definitely was animosity between players and coach.
Yeah, there's no. I don't think that's been questioned with Felipe's article at The Athletic that came out after Frank left town. I don't think there's been any real pushback on that. I mean, even Darren Eales and Carlos Bocanegra have kind of alluded to it. They're never going to go into massive detail there, but they've made it clear that there was something going on, and that was part of the reason why they made the decision. So, yeah, this plays into that. I don't think there's any shock in that. That's not what, again, it's not what LGP said on Argentine television after the season. He did say things in the midst of last season. I don't know. I was a little surprised that happened. I don't think it's a good look, period. You can feel that way, and you can not get along with a coach, and that happens. Look, there's plenty of times where you've had player and coach relationships that have had success that don't get along. That happens. That's just life. But I don't think it's a good look to put that out there in that way. Now, for Frank, it's kind of an easy target right now because everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
So is what it is. There we go. Now, thank you, Colonel, because, yeah, I think I was maybe trying to take 1 plus 2 and equal 5 because of the context that it was being given in. So Colonel says nothing to do with the laughing emojis. Letting him go was perhaps a flawed strategy. Thank you. Maybe, but again, if he wanted to stay, then we're having a different conversation than if he wanted to go. If the offer came and he wanted to go, it's hard to keep him there. And that's the way it's been portrayed up until recently. That is not the way it was portrayed when the deal happened. When the deal happened, Bocanegra spoke on it, and it wasn't questioned at that time. So if he wanted to stay and he was sold, we're having a different conversation than if he had an offer come in and he liked it and wanted to go and was sold. Those are two separate things, and we just don't know. We know what has been said, and it hasn't ever been refuted until very recently that there's this idea that he wanted to stay, and there's nothing to go on with that. So I don't know. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but that's not the story that was out there when the deal happened. So, I don't know.
Ricky Ricardo is in this morning. Have you seen the scissor kick volley goal from the Danish Cup?
I have not.
So it's on Copa 90. It's on Guardian Sport. Our friends at Lyngby Bold Club off a corner kick. Defender tries to scissor kick it into the net, goes off the crossbar, comes back out to him as he's sitting on the ground, and I would call it a scissor kick and then a volley from his butt. I wouldn't call it a double scissor kick.
So he did a scissor kick, and then he is in a seated position, and he volleyed it?
Yeah.
But over his head?
Sideways. It was, like I said, for me, it's a volley, side volley. It's not a... They're saying it's a double scissor kick. I would call it a scissor kick and a side volley, but still, it's pretty ridiculous. So that is the video public service announcement from Ricky Ricardo today. Go and watch this piece of video.
I think it has been shared with me, so I will... Yes, thank you, James. I will pull that up right now. Ricky, thank you. All of you guys have got my back here. I will watch that later. I don't know if the audio is going to really come over very well on this, so I will save that one for a minute. Yeah. Okay. Dejan Lovren has chimed in on the good part of what Tony Kroos said, not the silly thing about masks. He said, people wondering why there are so many injuries. It's simple. Too many games. Impossible to recover. When you know that this year is a weird one, parentheses COVID, no proper time off, parentheses, personally, I had only 8 days off. Then he said, no proper preseason, and then the crazy schedule. Tony Kroos is right, and many other managers said the same thing over and over again, but nobody listens. People who write and decide the schedule of matches should think about this topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you're going to have more and more players and managers come out and say these things because they should. It's absurd. It's absurd. Like they're playing too many games, and when we've had all these conversations about Atlanta United and MLS and all this, like it is a part of it. It is a part of the conversation. You're playing a lot of games. You're not able to really train. You're not getting time off. You have mental stress from dealing with COVID, let alone dealing with everything else that you're dealing with in your season. Then the mental fatigue that kicks in because of it. It's all brutal. And it's really hard to judge teams and players and managers right now because of all those challenges that you can't prepare for. And we're finding out now that you can't do this stuff. And you can't play this many games without these injuries, without bodies breaking down. It's just you can't. So they've got to figure something out. And many people have said, I think they're dead on it. And again, before he went down a really stupid tangent of calling people nonsense for celebrating goals with fun celebrations, Tony Kroos is right. You had an opportunity because of a Winter World Cup in 2022 to make everything fit. And they've crammed in more games. Why in the bluest of blue hells are you playing 3 games in an international window right now instead of 2? And you're playing these meaningless friendlies right now. Like, I mean, Frank de Boer said it, and it's almost like you don't want to even mention it because people are just going to start, posting laughing emojis whenever Frank de Boer's name comes up, which is sad. But Frank's like, why did we play this game yesterday? We didn't need to play this game. He's the manager of the national team. He said, well, we didn't need to play this game.
Yeah.
Because it was meaningless. What happened? They lose another player. Nathan Ake, hamstring, 6 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So let me get this straight, people in football. You have a regular season that starts late. you have a regular season that's going to end around the same time because you have a Euro that has been pushed back a year. You have a Copa America. You have a Gold Cup. You have international competitions in the summer that have to happen. So you're not going to back the end of the season up. So the end of the season is going to be the same. You're going to start later. So you're compressing the same number of games into a shorter period of time. Okay. You still got all your European competitions. Okay. What do you want to do with the national team games? Oh, yeah, let's just add an extra one. Let's play a friendly in the window on the Wednesday and then play a competitive game on the Friday or the Saturday and then play another one on the Tuesday or the Wednesday. Yeah, we can back it up to Wednesday because then they can go back to their teams and they can play on Saturday, and it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
That's great.
Nobody's going to get hurt. Yeah, it's fine.
That's fine.
Morons.
Genius.
There's no need for these friendlies. If you're going to have a friendly, what's the point of having these friendlies? One, to have games so the coaches can see their players. Okay, I get that side of it. What's the other? To make money. You're not making any money. You're not having anybody in the buildings. So what's the point? There isn't one. So stop doing it. 2 games in an international window, in a normal international window. 2 games, that's it. Done. No more of this 3-game nonsense. They have to stop that. That is impossible. I mean, you've got now the update out of Asia and their World Cup qualifying, because you're going to see some changes to some of these others too. In Asia, they set their schedule yesterday. They haven't played any qualifiers this year. The remaining games are going to be played in March and June on dates protected by FIFA, so international windows in March and June next year. A subsequent group stage of 2 16 groups is scheduled from September 21 to March of 22. That's going to use new slots that FIFA's had to create in January, the end of January in 22, January 24 to February 1st of 22, to help national teams clear their backlog of games. If they have another delay, which, I mean, they're waiting till March, maybe they're going to be okay in Asia to get this done. Oy. You're running out of time. These friendly dates, these friendly games, they got to stop. It's a absolute clown show. Absolute clown show. Okay, anything else on Twitter?
Let me see if there's anything on our end, but there is one thing that I wanted to mention before we go that is on Twitter. It's not on our Twitter. A really cool thing that the USMNT did when they announced their squad numbers for today's match against Wales. They added a Daryl Grove jersey and put a heart in the middle of it as a representation. I thought that was a very cool thing for them to do.
Yeah, very, very cool. Total Soccer Show. Daryl Grove passed away here recently. Very cool. There is a GoFundMe out there. We've retweeted it a few times to support his wife and family. Definitely go check that out if you can. We'll find it. We'll retweet it again here in just a little bit.
Yeah. We are caught up on the Twitters, and that's it from that particular section. What else you got?
Okay. Colonel on the Dutch side, he said they weren't doing well under FDB, but before he arrived, they missed the 2018 World Cup, so they weren't exactly lighting it on fire either at that time. I would agree. They have talent. They've got 3 draws in 4 games. I mean, it's not like they're getting blown out in these 4 games. I think a lot of people saw Frank de Boer not winning, ha 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 ha, and that's basically the reaction to it.
Yeah.
Look, the pressure's going to mount. I mean, that's real. There's no way around it. I think he's gotten some unfair criticism. I've been consistent on that. I'm still going to be consistent on that. But you don't get wins, the pressure mounts. Draws, for some, isn't good enough. In terms of where they are in Nations League, they're doing fine. They'll be fine. But he's got a couple of competitive games now that are going to matter. This game yesterday didn't matter for anything. It was a distraction, if anything, and he lost a player because of it. So I could care less about that result. I could care less about the result against Mexico. The 2 competitive games for the Netherlands, he got draws. His teams are creating chances. I watched the second half of the game against Bosnia, and they should have scored 2 or 3 goals. So, I mean, at some point, players have to perform, and it can't all be on Frank de Boer because of something that happened somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, it's getting to be a little much. Burned going back to the roster and the center back thing. So I think the idea that Miles replaces LGP and you needed a ball playing center back to pair with Miles to replace Parkhurst was correct. Meza is just not as good as Parkhurst. Parkhurst is really good and really underrated. I don't think we really had a chance to see the best of Fernando Meza. We saw good play from him at the very beginning, and we saw good play from him at the very end. The middle was rough. And again, it goes back to the year. One, he had an injury that made it difficult for him. He did not play well in Orlando in the MLS's back tournament. Also, until it was right around that time, maybe after that time, that we learned that his family hadn't been able to come to the United States. And that's going to have an effect. So it's like I don't want to be too harsh there. His performances were not as good as Michael Parkhurst's performances in 2017 and 18. That is accurate. Can he be as good? I think he can. We need to see that next year if he's here. We need to see that. He is another one because of Franco Escobar playing center back that, maybe your plans change a little bit because of that. And if an offer comes in, which had been alluded to at Tijuana, maybe you have a different conversation than you did last year. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But I don't think we had a chance to see the best of Fernando Meza for very long this year. That's the biggest thing. Yeah. Sam Williamson said there's no replacing Parkey and there's no replacing Nagbe. I mean, you have to. I understand what you're saying, but when one retires and one wants to go back closer to home, you've got to put somebody in those shoes. Meza was a good look for this. We didn't get to see the best of him. Central midfield, ultimately, I kind of think Josetu might end up being that kind of player. I think Marcelino Moreno gives you some of that, but you're replacing Nagbe not directly because there's not a direct replacement. You're trying to find ways to replace what he gave you. Josetu did a pretty good job of that late in the season when he got healthy. Again, it's another injury situation. Moreno does that more in the attacking half, and I think Josetu does that more in the defensive half. And if that is how you replace it, how you replace that possession in the middle of the park, might be able to bridge that gap, might be able to make that work. Colonel is catching us up on the League of Ireland shortened season. I think they were playing 18 games, if I'm not mistaken. Dundalk backed into third place with a 0-2 loss on Monday because fourth place Waterford was also able to win, so that gets them back into the Europa League qualifying for next year.
Right, yes. Saw that. Very cool.
Yeah, that's massive. It's crazy in some of those little small leagues like that you might not have a chance to see very much of, you might not follow much, but you see them pop up in Europa League. How lucrative that is for them to get into Europa League. Those games, it's in a lot of ways, it's bigger, not straight up in cash, but in terms of impact, it's bigger than the championship final going into the Premier League. Because it can make a club, or maybe some clubs right now are playing to survive in those games. If they don't get in and they don't get that European money, they might not be able to make it right now. Yeah. So those games feel like they're even more important. So Dundalk will have another opportunity to get in for next year. That's big. And Alex Pacine is making very, very bad jokes. Very, very bad jokes about Waterford.
Do we have any more Icelandic bots this morning?
No, we got rid of them. 18 games instead of 36. Thanks, Colonel. I thought I'd remembered that. I knew they'd cut it short. That's half. Wow, that's rough. KFC says about Meza, it's massive being without his family right now. Pacine says especially with a little one, and yes, he does. It was a funny joke, I agree. It was awful joke about Waterford. Awful, but yes, I did chuckle a little bit. Okay, so tomorrow we will talk U.S. and Wales for sure. Tomorrow we will also talk about Jarrett Smith's latest filing for soccerdownhere.net about Atlanta United awards for the season. We'll get into that. I'm sure that's going to spark some very civilized, normal, refined conversation.
Yes, very calm, very rational.
Yeah, totally that. It'll definitely spark all of that. There's just no question about it. So we'll get into all those things tomorrow. Thanks for everybody for hanging out. Remember, U.S. Wales today, 2:45 on FS1, on 2DNA, on Unimas. Bat Signal might go up to talk a little bit about it afterwards. It won't be a full podcast. It won't be a full show or anything, but maybe we hop on Twitch or something and talk a little about that game. We'll see. So stay tuned for bat signals. Otherwise, we'll be back in the morning. Thanks for hanging out. Much platiel.
Much platiel.